Welcome, weary traveller, to a sanctuary where time unspools its tightly wound threads, releasing the burdens of your day into the vast, forgiving expanse of the ancient twilight. Close your eyes and allow the heavy anchor of the present moment to gently dissolve, sinking beneath the calm, shimmering surface of history. You are safe here, wrapped in the quiet embrace of an era long past, yet vividly alive in the gentle theatre of your mind. Tonight, we journey far beyond the modern clamour, drifting backward across the centuries to the rugged, breathtaking coast of Hispania in the year 110. Here, at the very edge of the known Roman world, the land meets the endless ocean in a quiet, eternal dialogue. The sky above is a canvas of softening hues painted in deep, bruised purples, dusty rose, and the faintest whispering gold of a sun retreating below the watery horizon. Breathe in the cool, salted air, carrying with it the subtle, earthy fragrance of sun-warmed stone and wild coastal heather. Feel the steady, unyielding earth beneath your feet, grounding you in a place where empires built monuments not just to power, but to the guiding light of civilization. As the shadows lengthen and the twilight deepens, you are invited to leave your worldly cares upon the shore. Step into the tranquil dusk, where the rhythmic sigh of the tide promises rest, and the ancient lighthouse prepares to kindle its solitary, comforting flame against the approaching velvet night. Before we begin our long ascent up the spiraling stone stairs of this magnificent beacon, take a single, deep and truly restful breath. If you find peace in these quiet corners of forgotten history, I humbly invite you to subscribe to this channel and gently press the notification bell. By joining our restful community, you ensure that you will always have a peaceful refuge waiting for you, a place to return whenever the loud, heavy waking world becomes too much to bear. Liking this video softly signals to others wandering the digital landscape that they too can find solace and tranquility right here within our shared stories. Think of your subscription as a small, silent lantern placed in the window, guiding kindred spirits toward this calming sanctuary. Now let your shoulders drop down, releasing any lingering tension held tightly in your muscles. Soften the muscles around your tired eyes and allow your jaw to unclench completely. The bustling markets and the marching legions of the Roman Empire are far behind us now, replaced only by the sweeping melody of the Atlantic waves gently caressing the weathered granite cliffs below. There is absolutely nowhere else you need to be tonight, my friend, and there is nothing else you need to do. Just listen to the comforting cadence of the ancient evening, allow my voice to guide your imagination safely, and prepare to step deeper into the hushed, marvellous twilight of a world that is patiently waiting just for you to arrive. We begin our ascent not upon the cold stone steps themselves, but upon the gently sloping promontory that carries this magnificent structure upon its broad, ancient shoulders. The earth here is a tapestry of resilient life woven with thick, fibrous tufts of coastal grasses that bow and sway in perfect rhythmic synchronization with the endless breathing of the Atlantic wind. Imagine the color of this wild grass as the evening sun begins to wane. It is not merely green, but a complex muted spectrum of silver, pale olive, and deep shadowy emerald, each blade catching the fading light in its own unique way. Mixed within this sea of swaying stems are the delicate, papery blooms of sea thrift, their rounded, blush-pink heads bobbing like tiny suspended lanterns against the darkening canvas of the oceanic horizon. The wind that moves them is a constant companion here at the edge of the world, but tonight it is not a fierce, howling gale. Rather, it is a steady, soothing murmur, a prolonged and gentle exhalation from the sea that carries the unmistakable, crisp scent of pulverized sea salt, crushed oyster shells, and the faint, sweet perfume of the coastal heather. As you walk slowly toward the towering structure, your footsteps fall upon a path worn smooth by the passage of countless solitary guardians and weary travelers. The dirt is packed dense and hard, offering a comforting, unyielding support beneath the soles of your leather sandals. The air is cooling, carrying the unique, refreshing chill that only arrives when the heat of the day willingly surrenders to the approaching night. This chill brushes gently against your cheeks, carrying with it a profound sense of isolation, but an isolation that feels entirely secure, a welcome retreat from the densely populated, noisy streets of the inland Roman cities. Raising your eyes from the humble dirt path, you are finally confronted with the sheer, breathtaking majesty of the lighthouse base, a monumental feat of Roman engineering that seems to grow organically from the jagged bedrock itself. This is not merely a building. It is a declaration of endurance, a fortress of light constructed to withstand the relentless, churning temper of the ocean. The stone used in its creation is a locally quarried granite, cut into massive rectangular ashlar blocks, each one precisely measured and meticulously laid by master stonemasons whose names have long since dissolved into the mists of time. Step closer, until you are near enough to reach out and place the flat of your palm against the ancient surface. The stone still holds the phantom warmth of the afternoon sun, a gentle radiating heat that seeps through your skin, contrasting beautifully with the cool evening air brushing against the back of your hand. Beneath your fingertips, you can trace the microscopic topography of the granite, feeling the rough, crystalline inclusions of quartz that sparkle like embedded diamonds, the smooth, dark flakes of mica, and the sturdy, opaque fields of feldspar. The surface is beautifully uneven, bearing the faint parallel grooves left behind by the mason's iron chisel over a century ago, a tactile memory of careful human labor preserved in solid stone. In the crevices between these massive blocks, a fine mortar, a mixture of crushed limestone, volcanic ash, and river sand, forms a pale binding ribbon, miraculously unyielding against the persistent dampness of the coastal environment. Over the decades, nature has begun to reclaim this monument in the gentlest of ways. Patches of crustose lichen have bloomed across the stones, spreading outward in slow circular ripples of pale sage, mustard yellow, and ash grey, softening the severe geometry of the towering architecture and blending the man-made structure seamlessly into the wild landscape. Every single block tells a silent, calming story of perseverance, a testament to the quiet strength required to stand vigilant against the darkening evening sky. Before we approach the entrance directly, turn your gaze outward, over your shoulder, to the vast expanse of the Oceanus Atlanticus that stretches infinitely toward the western horizon. The water is a masterpiece of shifting colors, an ever-changing tapestry woven from the deepest, most unfathomable indigo, rich bruised purples, and fleeting streaks of molten copper where the last, dying rays of the sun managed to pierce the gathering clouds. Far below the sheer drop of the cliffs, the waves meet the jagged rocks in a slow, rhythmic, and mesmerizing dance. There is no violence in their collision tonight, only a deep, resonant, booming sound, a low-frequency vibration that you can feel humming softly within your chest, followed by the long sweeping hiss of water drawing backward over thousands of rounded, smooth pebbles. This sound, the deep rhythmic drumbeat of the wave and the sighing retreat of the surf, is the true heartbeat of the lighthouse, an eternal natural metronome that lulls the anxious mind into a state of profound, unwavering tranquility. The sea spray, atomized by the impact, rises into the air like a fine, translucent veil of mist, catching the fading twilight and creating a soft, hazy boundary between the solid earth and the fluid ocean. It is a panoramic view that speaks softly of eternity, reminding you of the vastness of the world and the comforting smallness of your own temporary worries, which seem to evaporate entirely in the face of such ancient, enduring majesty. You stand there for a long, quiet moment, simply absorbing the slow rhythm, allowing your own breath to synchronize with the tidal pull of the water below, feeling a deep, abiding peace settling slowly into the very marrow of your bones. Turning back to the tower, your attention is drawn to the single point of entry, deeply recessed within the thick, impenetrable granite walls. The doorway is framed by a perfect semicircular Roman arch, its voussoirs cut with such mathematical precision that they rely purely on gravity and mutual pressure to hold their monumental weight, a supportive architectural embrace that has stood unbroken through decades of coastal storms. Within this sheltering arch sits the door itself, a formidable construction crafted from the heartwood of ancient, slow-grown mountain oaks. The wood has darkened over time, weathered by the salt-laden air into a rich, complex shade of deep charcoal and burnt umber, its dense grain standing out in raised, undulating ridges that closely resemble the topography of a miniature forested landscape. The heavy boards are bound together by thick horizontal bands of wrought iron, forged in a distant blacksmith's fire and hammered flat, their surfaces dimpled and scarred by the rhythmic heavy strikes of the smith's hammer long ago. The iron is cool to the touch, speckled with a fine, powdery layer of reddish-brown rust that blooms like rust-coloured moss in the damp sea air. At the centre of the door rests a heavy iron latch, worn incredibly smooth and polished, to a dull, comforting silver gleam by the countless hands of the dedicated lighthouse keepers who have crossed this threshold day after day, night after night. As you press your palm against the thick timber, you can deeply inhale the distinct, comforting aroma of the door. It is a fragrant blend of aged oak, raw linseed oil used to protect the wood from the harsh elements, the faint metallic tang of the oxidized iron, and the ever-present, overarching scent of the vast ocean. This door is not merely a physical barrier, it is a dedicated guardian, a silent sentinel that watches over the inner sanctum of the lighthouse, promising absolute safety to all who enter. When you slowly depress the heavy iron latch, it yields with a satisfying muffled click, a resonant sound that softly fades into the thick stone wall. You push gently and the massive door groans softly on its forged iron hinges, opening inward to reveal the deep, enveloping shadows of the ancient interior. The transition from the open, airy expanse of the promontory to the enclosed, heavily fortified base of the tower is immediate and profoundly comforting. As you step carefully over the raised stone threshold, leaving the vast, darkening expanse of the coastal evening behind you, the heavy oak door swings shut with a slow, deliberate grace. It requires a gentle, sustained push of your shoulder to close it entirely, and when the thick iron latch finally falls perfectly back into its forged resting place, the resulting sound is a deep, satisfying, resonant thud that seems to seal you safely away from the rest of the world. Instantly, the acoustic landscape of your surroundings undergoes a profound and remarkable transformation. The ever-present rhythmic roar of the Atlantic waves, the high, clear calls of the circling seabirds, and the constant whispering rush of the coastal wind are immediately severed, replaced by an incredibly thick, enveloping blanket of quiet. The silence within the base of the lighthouse is not an empty, hollow void, but rather a rich, textured stillness. It is a deeply insulated quiet where the ferocious energy of the outside elements is reduced to a faint, barely perceptible vibration, a low, comforting hum that you feel vibrating ever so softly through the soles of your feet and deep within your chest rather than hearing it with your ears. You are now standing within the hollowed heart of a colossal stone guardian, entirely protected from the unpredictable temper of the encroaching night. The air inside the lower chamber is immediately different, distinctly cooler than the lingering twilight warmth outside. It is heavy still and completely undisturbed by the wind, wrapping around your skin like a soft, invisible garment made of cool, fine silk. Take a moment to simply stand perfectly still in the dim, tranquil gloom, allowing your eyes the necessary time to adjust to the sudden withdrawal of the evening light. As your pupils slowly dilate, the deep shadows that initially seemed impenetrable begin to softly peel back, revealing the sweeping, majestic curvature of the inner sanctum. The architecture here at the base is purely functional, yet its massive scale possesses an undeniable brutalist beauty. Unlike the rough, weather-beaten granite of the exterior walls, the stone blocks lining the interior are remarkably dry and smooth, protected for decades from the harsh, salt-laden rain. Embedded directly into the thick, curving wall, precisely at eye level, is a small, carefully chiseled semicircular alcove. Resting peacefully within this shallow stone niche is a single, solitary source of light, a beautifully simple, unglazed terracotta oil lamp known to the ancient Romans as a lucerna. The clay of the lamp is a rich, earthy color, a warm shade of burnt sienna that speaks of the distant, sun-baked soils from which it was carefully shaped by a potter's skilled hands long ago. The surface of the terracotta is not perfectly smooth. It bears the microscopic, overlapping ridges left behind by the potter's spinning wheel, and its small, curved handle has been worn to a dark, polished sheen by the countless, repetitive touches of the lighthouse keepers who ignite it every single evening. Step closer to this humble, steady light. Notice how the reservoir of the lamp is filled nearly to the brim with pale golden-green olive oil, a precious imported liquid that reflects the tiny flame upon its perfectly still, viscous surface like a miniature, tranquil pond. The wick, crafted from tightly twisted fibers of raw, unbleached linen, rests in the narrow spout, drawing the rich oil upward through the slow, silent magic of capillary action to feed the fire. The flame itself is entirely mesmerizing. In the absolute stillness of the enclosed chamber, completely sheltered from even the slightest draught, the fire does not flicker or dance wildly. Instead, it burns with a calm, unwavering teardrop shape, its core a brilliant, blinding white that transitions smoothly into a soft, hazy halo of warm amber gold. This tiny, solitary flame is the beautiful beating heart of the lower room, radiating a surprisingly comforting, localized warmth that you can feel gently caressing your cheeks as you lean in. The light it casts is wonderfully soft, completely lacking the harsh, unforgiving glare of the midday sun. It projects long, stretching, buttery shadows across the curving expanse of the granite walls, highlighting the subtle, uneven textures of the mortar and the gentle, convex swelling of the massive stone blocks. Where the golden light cannot reach, deep pools of indigo shadow gather in the highest corners of the vaulted ceiling, creating a profound sense of limitless height within the enclosed circular space. The aroma filling the chamber is incredibly distinct, a complex, layered fragrance that tells a silent story of isolation and slow, measured time. The most immediate scent is that of the burning olive oil, carrying a slightly sweet, earthy, and faintly nutty perfume that instantly evokes a sense of domestic comfort and human presence amidst the cold, unyielding stone. Mingled intimately with this is the scent of the lighthouse itself, the dry, mineral-rich smell of ancient granite dust, the faint, chalky aroma of the curing limestone mortar, and the deep, slightly metallic tang of the massive iron hinges. If you inhale deeply, allowing the cool air to fill your lungs completely, you might also detect the incredibly faint, lingering scent of old wool and worn leather. Looking to your right, just beyond the reach of the lamp's golden halo, you can gently make out a heavy wooden peg driven deeply into the masonry. Hanging heavily from this simple peg is a thick woolen piunula, a traditional hooded cloak worn by the keeper of the flame to ward off the biting chill of the midnight watch. The fabric is a coarse, heavy weave, dyed a deep, muted brown, and its folds hold the trapped atmospheric memory of countless nights spent ascending to the lantern room, carrying the absorbed smells of sea salt, wood smoke, and damp mist. The mere sight of it hanging there, patiently waiting for its master, adds a deeply comforting layer of human warmth to the monumental, impersonal architecture of the stone tower. Lowering your gaze to the floor beneath your feet, you will notice that it is paved with massive, irregular slabs of dark slate-grey stone. Unlike the meticulously carved ashlar blocks of the walls, these floor stones were chosen for their sheer, unyielding density, designed to bear the colossal weight of the structure and the endless traffic of heavy sandals. Yet even this incredibly hard stone has surrendered to the slow, patient erosion of time and routine. Right at the center of the chamber, where the path naturally leads from the heavy oak door toward the beginning of the great spiraling ramp, the stone has been worn remarkably smooth. A shallow, undulating depression has been carved directly into the rock by the soft, continuous friction of thousands upon thousands of footsteps over the decades. As you stand within this shallow groove, you are physically stepping into the established rhythm of the past, placing your feet exactly where generations of solitary, dedicated individuals have stood before you. The surface of the stone here is polished to a dull, matte sheen, entirely free of dust, feeling surprisingly soft and almost velvety beneath the hard leather soles of your footwear. Standing in this peaceful, secluded entry chamber, you are enveloped in a profound atmosphere of absolute security and slow, deliberate purpose. The anxieties of the bustling daylight world, the noise of the markets, the complex negotiations of trade, the urgent, pressing demands of the empire, cannot penetrate these incredibly thick, sound-dampening walls. The lower chamber of the lighthouse acts as a gentle psychological airlock, beautifully designed to strip away the frantic energy of the day and prepare the mind for the long, meditative, and incredibly peaceful ascent toward the summit. Here, in the dim, golden light of the solitary oil lamp, surrounded by the scent of earth and olive oil, and standing upon the worn, comforting stone of the floor, time does not race forward with anxious speed. Instead, it seems to pool quietly in the deep shadows, dripping slowly and steadily, completely unhurried, offering you a precious, uninterrupted moment to simply be, to breathe, and to exist in perfect, harmonious alignment with the silent, majestic breathing of the ancient towering stones. As you prepare to leave the peaceful sanctuary of the softly lit lower chamber, your gaze is drawn naturally toward the wide, inviting archway that marks the beginning of your long, meditative journey upward. Unlike the steep, precarious, and narrow staircases found in lesser towers built by later civilizations, this magnificent Roman beacon possesses a profoundly different method of elevation. Rising before you is a broad, continuous, gently sloping ramp that hugs the outer perimeter of the massive interior wall, spiraling upward like the perfectly calibrated golden ratio hidden within the shell of a deep-sea nautilus. The incline is remarkably gradual, a masterful stroke of engineering designed specifically so that sturdy, sure-footed mules could patiently carry heavy terracotta amphorae of precious olive oil or massive bundles of seasoned firewood all the way to the lantern room without entirely exhausting their strength. As you place your foot upon the very first section of this ascending path, you can immediately feel the subtle, comforting shift in gravity. Your body leans almost imperceptibly forward, engaging a completely different set of muscles in your legs, settling quickly into a slow, deliberate, and hypnotic rhythm that naturally regulates the pace of your breathing. The sheer scale of the ramp provides a profound sense of security. It is wide enough that two people could comfortably walk shoulder to shoulder, though tonight you have this vast, silent pathway entirely to yourself. Lowering your eyes to the surface beneath your feet, you will discover that the paving of the ramp is an intricate, mesmerizing work of functional art. Instead of the massive, irregular stone slabs that floor the entryway chamber, the path upward is meticulously laid with thousands of small, rectangular fired clay bricks, arranged in a striking, interlocking zigzag pattern known to the ancient Roman architects as opus spicatum, or the herringbone weave. This specific arrangement is not merely decorative, it provides an essential textured grip for leather-soled sandals and iron-shod hooves, preventing any dangerous slipping upon the continuous gradient. The bricks themselves are a deeply beautiful testament to the earth from which they were forged. Baked in massive kilns over a century ago, their colors vary wonderfully in the dim ambient light, presenting a subtly shifting mosaic of pale terracotta, rich burnt umber, muted ochre, and deep charcoal-tinged reds where the flames of the kiln licked the clay most fiercely. Over the countless decades, the sharp, rigid corners of these bricks have been softly worn down and beautifully rounded by the endless passage of time and traffic, creating a gentle, undulating texture that feels almost soft beneath your feet. As you trace the repeating V-shaped patterns with your eyes, the geometric precision of the herringbone design creates a soothing, visual lullaby, a repeating visual mantra that beautifully reinforces the slow, steady rhythm of your solitary climb. Arching grandly over this continuous ramp is a magnificent sweeping barrel vault constructed entirely of carefully cut wedge-shaped stones and incredibly resilient Roman concrete. The ceiling seems to hover in the dimness above you, a heavy, solid canopy that nonetheless feels miraculously weightless, held aloft by the flawless mathematical distribution of pressure that is the hallmark of the empire's master builders. Because the ramp curves continuously around the central core of the lighthouse, the ceiling vault must also curve in perfect, synchronized harmony, creating an architectural space that possesses no sharp, jarring corners or sudden, aggressive angles. Instead, there is only a smooth, endless flow of heavy stone, curling continuously upward and out of sight. The surface of this vaulted ceiling is left unplastered, proudly displaying the raw, honest texture of its construction. The pale mortar lines map out a complex curving grid against the darker stone like the delicate, calcified skeleton of some enormous dormant beast resting peacefully atop your shoulders. The coolness radiating from this vast expanse of masonry gently settles downward, keeping the air on the ramp wonderfully crisp and invigorating, preventing the enclosed space from ever feeling stifling or close. It is a protective, enveloping coolness that wraps around you like a heavy, weighted blanket, offering absolute refuge from the residual heat of the daylight world that you have now entirely left behind. As you progress further up the gentle incline, leaving the warm golden glow of the entrance lamp far below, you become intimately aware of the incredibly unique acoustic environment created by this massive stone spiral. Every single step you take produces a sound that is immediately court-shaped and gently amplified by the curving walls and the vaulted ceiling overhead. However, the sound is not sharp or disruptive. When the flat leather sole of your sandal makes contact with the herringbone bricks, it produces a deep, muffled and softly rounded thwump. This sound travels slightly ahead of you, curling up the spiral ramp and fading into a soft, whispering echo that seems to stretch infinitely into the darkness above. If you pause your walking for just a moment and hold your breath, the silence that rushes back in to fill the void is remarkably heavy and profound, emphasizing the absolute solitude of the tower. When you resume your slow, rhythmic pacing, the sound of your own quiet footsteps becomes a deeply hypnotic companion. It is a slow, steady drumbeat, a solitary rhythm that lulls your conscious mind into a state of deep relaxation, stripping away any lingering, intrusive thoughts and focusing your entire awareness solely on the simple physical act of ascending. You are moving through time and space at a pace dictated only by your own comfort, surrounded by a stone resonance that hums with a quiet, ancient vitality. Perhaps 30 paces up the incline, a subtle shift occurs in the visual landscape of the tunnel. Piercing the incredibly thick outer granite wall to your left is the first of several narrow, deeply recessed slit windows, specifically designed to admit a highly controlled sliver of ambient light while keeping the fierce coastal winds at bay. The opening on the interior wall is relatively wide, perhaps the span of a man's shoulders, but the thick masonry slopes drastically inward, creating a deep angular funnel that narrows down to an aperture no wider than a single open hand resting flat on the exterior surface. This deep splay creates a beautiful, diffused funnel of faint atmospheric illumination that softly interrupts the enveloping darkness of the ramp. Because the sun has now fully slipped beneath the western horizon, the light filtering through this narrow stone eye is no longer warm or bright. Instead, it is a profoundly beautiful, melancholy shade of deep, dusty twilight blue, carrying the cool visual signature of the approaching night. This ethereal blue light spills softly onto the inner wall, painting an elongated trapezoid of pale luminescence against the dark granite. As you step directly into this soft beam of twilight, the air itself suddenly seems to take on a delicate, visible texture. Caught within the gentle wash of blue illumination are thousands of microscopic dust motes, tiny, weightless fragments of ancient stone, dried sea salt and soft linen fibers, dancing and swirling in a slow, silent, and incredibly graceful choreography. They drift with the almost imperceptible thermal currents of the stairwell, sparkling faintly like a miniature contained galaxy of infinitesimal stars hanging suspended in the cool, still air. Through the narrow slit of the window, you can just barely detect the rhythmic exhalation of the ocean far below, filtered through the solid granite until it is nothing more than a soft, rhythmic breathing. The juxtaposition of the silent, dancing dust motes within the thick stone walls and the faint, eternal breathing of the sea outside creates an atmosphere of unparalleled, intoxicating tranquility. You are suspended perfectly between two worlds, the solid, unchanging permanence of the Roman architecture and the fluid, endless motion of the natural universe. Breathing in the cool, faintly salt-tinged air that gathers near the window, you feel an overwhelming sense of peace settling deeply into your chest, ready to carry you further upward into the deepening, majestic silence of the ancient lighthouse. As you slowly and deliberately pull yourself away from the mesmerizing dance of the dust motes suspended in that singular beam of twilight, your eyes gently readjust to the deep enveloping shadows of the spiraling corridor. The path continues its patient, unrelenting upward curve, a beautiful ribbon of herringbone brick, stretching steadily into the quiet darkness above. While your gaze has thus far been captivated by the massive outer walls and the slivers of fading daylight piercing through them, your attention now drifts inward to your right toward the absolute, unmoving center of the structure. Here stands the colossal inner core, the immense solid spine of dense granite around which this entire magnificent ramp is so carefully wrapped. This central pillar is the true anchor of the lighthouse, a breathtaking cylinder of solid masonry that carries the unfathomable weight of the vaulted ceiling and the towering lantern room above. Unlike the exterior walls, which are slightly curved to form the circular shape of the tower, the blocks making up this central core are cut with an astonishing rigid precision. They are massive, perfectly squared ashlars, stacked with such profound exactitude that the seams between them are barely wider than a single blade of coastal grass. Reach out your right hand as you resume your slow, rhythmic walk, allowing the tips of your fingers to trail softly against the surface of this monumental central column. The stone here feels entirely different from the walls of the entrance chamber, because it is buried deep within the heart of the structure, far removed from any direct contact with the sun or the shifting ambient temperatures of the outside air. The granite possesses a deep, enduring, and profound coldness. It is a wonderfully pure, ancient chill that feels incredibly soothing against your warm skin, like a cool compress applied gently to a fevered brow. As your fingertips glide over the rough, crystalline surface, you can trace the microscopic peaks and valleys of the grey stone, feeling the tiny, sharp ridges of quartz that refuse to be smoothed away, and the incredibly faint, powdery residue of ancient mortar that dusts your skin like the finest, palest chalk. The friction of your hand against the stone produces a barely audible, continuous sighing sound, a soft, papery whisper that beautifully accompanies the muffled, rhythmic thwump of your sandals upon the clay bricks below. It is a tactile and auditory lullaby, anchoring your wandering thoughts entirely to the physical sensation of the cool, unyielding stone and the slow, steady progression of your upward climb. Perhaps 50 paces further along the gentle incline, the unbroken, curving surface of the central column is gently interrupted. Recessed deeply into the solid mass of the stone is a beautifully proportioned, perfectly arched storage alcove, a quiet, shadowed hollow designed specifically to offer a brief respite for the weary lighthouse keepers and the heavily laden pack animals that once ascended this very path. The alcove is perhaps as deep as a man's outstretched arm, its ceiling formed by a beautifully constructed miniature barrel vault that mirrors the grand, sweeping canopy overhead. The darkness within this small recessed chamber is incredibly dense, a thick, velvety pooling of shadows that seems to actively absorb whatever faint, stray light manages to wander up the ramp. But as you pause before it, allowing your eyes the long, necessary moments to peer into the gloom, the subtle hidden details of this forgotten resting place slowly begin to reveal themselves. The floor of the alcove is entirely different from the herringbone bricks of the ramp. It is a meticulously levelled bed of incredibly fine, pale river sand, brought up from a distant inland stream and poured here with careful, deliberate purpose. The sand is dry and soft, its surface completely undisturbed, holding the faint scalloped patterns of the air currents that gently swirl up the spiraling corridor. Resting perfectly upright within this soft bed of sand are two magnificent terracotta amphorae, their classic, elegant shapes a silent testament to the vast, interconnected trade networks of the mighty Roman Empire. They are large, heavy vessels, each standing nearly to the height of your waist, with wide, swelling shoulders that elegantly taper down to a narrow, pointed base securely nestled deep within the yielding sand. This pointed design, so characteristic of ancient shipping containers, allowed them to be safely stacked in the deep holds of merchant galleys and beautifully cradled in sand beds like this one, preventing them from tipping or spilling their precious contents. The clay from which these vessels were fired is a breathtaking muted shade of deep, dusty rose, heavily mottled with patches of pale, chalky white, where the ancient salts from the surrounding sea air have slowly bloomed across the porous surface over the centuries. Sweeping gracefully from the narrow, sturdy necks to the broad, curved shoulders of the amphorae are two thick, utilitarian handles, their surfaces worn to a smooth, comfortable polish by the countless straining hands that hoisted them from the rocking decks of ships to the backs of sturdy mules. and finally, to this quiet, elevated resting place. If you lean in close, resting your hands gently upon your knees and bringing your face near the heavily sealed mouth of the nearest amphora, you can detect an incredibly faint, ghost-like aroma lingering in the still cool air. The opening of the vessel is tightly plugged with a thick, heavy disc of shaped cork, which is entirely encased and heavily sealed beneath a thick, hardened layer of dark, aromatic pine pitch. The pitch was applied while molten, allowed to cool and harden into a smooth, black, impenetrable shell that guaranteed the absolute purity and preservation of the liquid hidden within. Even now, after an eternity of quiet rest, the hardened resin releases a deeply comforting, ancient fragrance. It is the rich, dark, slightly sweet scent of old pine forests, mingled beautifully with the unmistakable heavy aroma of the golden pressed olive oil that these jars were designed to carry. It is a warm, earthy, and deeply domestic smell that softly contrasts with the stark, mineral coldness of the surrounding granite walls. The scent conjures a powerful, incredibly peaceful image of distant, sun-drenched olive groves, the slow, rhythmic turning of massive stone presses, and the careful, dedicated labor required to fuel the brilliant, life-saving beacon shining at the very top of the world. Coiled neatly beside the base of the terracotta amphorae, resting softly upon the pale sand, is a thick, incredibly heavy length of traditional rope. This is not the smooth, woven hemp of later centuries, but a much older, beautifully rustic cordage, meticulously twisted from dried, resilient esparto grass, harvested from the arid, sun-baked plains of the deep Iberian interior. The rope is thick as a man's wrist, its color a perfectly muted, pale, golden brown that seems to hold the trapped light of a distant, forgotten summer sun. Take a moment to gently run your fingers across its surface. The texture is breathtakingly complex. It is incredibly rough, dry, and distinctly bristly, composed of thousands upon thousands of individual wiry grass fibers that have been gathered, soaked, beaten, and masterfully braided together with an immense twisting tension. You can feel the distinct repeating ridges of the three heavy strands that make up the coil, wrapping around one another in an endless, mesmerizing spiral that perfectly echoes the grand, sweeping architecture of the ascending ramp itself. The dry, dusty scent of the esparto grass mingles with the rich pine pitch and the ancient stone, creating a deeply grounding, earthy perfume that fills your senses with absolute tranquility. Everything in this quiet, hidden alcove speaks of slow, deliberate preparation, of quiet endurance, and of a time when the simple vital tasks of keeping a light burning required an immense, beautifully measured and unhurried patience. As you slowly straighten your back, taking one last lingering look at the silent amphorae and the coiled golden rope, you take a deep, cleansing breath of the cool air, feeling the profound, heavy peace of the ancient structure settling ever deeper into your relaxed, unwinding muscles. The path upward gently beckons once more, calling you to continue your slow, hypnotic journey toward the sky. As you peel yourself away from the comforting, earthen scent of the hidden alcove and the silent vigil of the terracotta amphorae, the hypnotic rhythm of your ascent gracefully reclaims your senses. As you step softly back onto the center of the gently spiraling path, the muffled, rhythmic thump of your leather sandals upon the interlocking herringbone bricks resumes its steady, mesmerizing cadence. With every deliberate revolution around the colossal, unyielding central core of the lighthouse, you can physically feel the subtle, creeping elevation, carrying you further away from the heavy, grounded reality of the earth below. The atmosphere within the vaulted tunnel begins to undergo a profound, fascinating metamorphosis. The deeply insulated subterranean stillness of the lower chambers slowly gives way to a faint, almost imperceptible vibration that hums continuously through the massive granite blocks. You're climbing into the throat of the sky, and the towering structure is responding to the shifting, invisible currents of the coastal atmosphere. The air here feels distinctly lighter, remarkably crisper in your lungs, shedding the heavy, dusty perfume of dry earth and ancient sand, replacing it instead with the sharp, clean, and wildly invigorating aroma of pure ocean ozone. You can feel a subtle, gentle drop in the atmospheric pressure, a delicate popping sensation deep within your ears that softly muffles the internal drumming of your own heartbeat, leaving only the external, acoustic lullaby of your steady, solitary footsteps. The stone itself seems to breathe with you, a silent, monumental companion guiding your weary spirit ever upward through the beautiful, unbroken darkness of the curving architectural shell. Perhaps 100 paces further into this ascending twilight, the unbroken, curving expanse of the exterior wall to your left is interrupted by a magnificent, unexpected feature. Recessed deeply into the immensely thick granite is a large rectangular aperture, much wider and taller than the narrow angled arrow slits you passed earlier. However, this vast opening is not left exposed to the open sky. It is securely enclosed by an awe-inspiring, immensely heavy bronze lattice known to the Roman architects as a transenna. This masterful work of ancient metallurgy is a breathtaking sight in the dim, filtering light. The bronze is thick, robust, and cast in an incredibly intricate, repeating geometric pattern of flawlessly intersecting circles and sharp, elongated diamonds designed to permit the free flow of crucial ventilation while preventing the fierce coastal gales from wreaking havoc within the tower. Decades of relentless exposure to the damp, salt-heavy breath of the Atlantic have completely transformed the surface of the metal, stripping away its original fiery golden-brown luster and replacing it with a breathtaking, complex patina of astonishing depth and character. The heavy lattice is entirely encrusted in a beautifully vibrant, chalky layer of oxidized verdigris. It is a mesmerizing, mottled landscape of colors: pale, ghostly seafoam green, deep, rich malachite, vibrant turquoise, and stark, charcoal black streaks where the moisture has gathered and pooled in the sharp corners of the geometric casting. If you reach out and gently press the flat pads of your fingers against the thick bronze intersecting lines, the metal feels astonishingly cold, possessing a slick, dense, and slightly powdery texture that leaves a faint, pale green residue of ancient oxidation upon your skin. As you stand before this magnificent, oxidized grate, you become intimately aware of the invisible, powerful force pressing against the exterior of the lighthouse. The wind at this elevated height is much stronger than at the base, sweeping in directly from the vast, unbroken expanse of the Western Ocean. Yet, as this relentless moving air encounters the heavy, geometrically precise bronze lattice, its raw, chaotic energy is miraculously tamed, transformed into a continuous, hypnotic, and profoundly beautiful acoustic phenomenon. The wind squeezes itself tightly through the hundreds of diamond and circular voids in the metal, creating a soft, mournful, and multi-layered harmonic whistling. It is a low, breathy flute song, a continuous droning chord played by the invisible hands of the sky upon an instrument forged of ancient metal. The sound rises and falls with the undulating breath of the coastal gusts, swelling into a resonant, hollow moan before tapering off into a delicate, sighing whisper that echoes softly up and down the spiraling stone ramp. Accompanying this mesmerizing auditory display is a highly concentrated, localized jet of bracingly cold air that pushes steadily through the bronze mesh. It brushes vigorously against your face and the exposed skin of your arms, carrying the intense, concentrated chill of the high-altitude twilight. It is a wildly refreshing sensation, a tactile reminder of the vast, untamed wilderness that surrounds this isolated pillar of Roman civilization, instantly clearing any residual fog from your mind and sharpening your senses to a beautiful crystalline clarity. By shifting your weight slightly and leaning your forehead carefully against the cool, powdery surface of the bronze grate, you can peer through one of the larger circular openings, granting you a tiny, perfectly framed glimpse of the outside world. The view is a living, breathing painting, a masterpiece of twilight melancholy. The sky has shed all its lingering sunset warmth, transitioning entirely into an incredibly deep, bruised shade of velvet indigo. And there, suspended perfectly in the exact center of your metallic circular frame, hangs the very first star of the evening. It is Hesperus, the evening star, a tiny piercing prick of brilliant diamond-white light burning fiercely against the darkening canvas of the heavens. It trembles and flickers ever so slightly through the distorting cold layers of the atmospheric coastal haze, a solitary companion sharing your silent vigil at the edge of the known world. Pulling your gaze slowly away from this celestial jewel and looking upward toward the inner curve of the vaulted ceiling directly above the bronze grate, you notice an imposing structural addition designed to fortify the tower against the immense wind pressures at this altitude. Bolted deeply into the granite with massive rusted iron spikes are immense, curved ribs of ancient darkened timber. These are the mighty inner braces carved from the slow-grown heartwood of ancient mountain cedars. The wood is nearly black with age, its incredibly dense, tightly packed grain visibly standing out in sharp, undulating relief, completely stripped of any softer fibers by the ceaseless dry winds channeling up the stairwell. The aroma of this aged cedar wood is deeply intoxicating, a dry, peppery and intensely resinous perfume that perfectly complements the metallic tang of the oxidized bronze and the sharp ozone of the rushing wind. The massive rusted iron spikes that anchor these timber ribs into the unyielding granite are a marvel of ancient blacksmithing. Each spike is as thick as a strong man's forearm, the square, faceted heads bearing the deep, uneven depressions left by heavy sledgehammers a century ago. Over the years, the damp coastal air has caused the iron to gently weep, staining the pale, dry granite directly beneath the bolts with long, vertical, rust-colored streaks that look like beautiful, oxidized tears running down the rough, crystalline face of the stone. Below your feet, the ambient twilight filtering through the bronze lattice projects a flawless, incredibly crisp shadow pattern onto the pale herringbone bricks of the ramp. It is a shifting, dark mosaic of sharp diamonds and circles that slightly elongates and distorts as it drapes perfectly over the gentle upward curve of the floor. As you stand quietly within this intricate projection of dark and light, you become a temporary silent part of the ancient geometry, a peaceful observer standing perfectly still within the slow-moving machinery of the cosmos. Everything in this isolated section of the magnificent ramp speaks softly of unyielding endurance, a perfectly balanced architectural harmony between the immovable strength of the heavy stone, the resilient flexibility of the aged timber, and the untamed, flowing energy of the high coastal winds. With a slow, deep inhalation gathering the intensely crisp, ozone-rich air completely into your lungs, you slowly push yourself away from the beautiful oxidized grate. The harmonic whistling of the wind gently fades into a softer background hum as you turn your body back toward the center of the spiraling ramp. The deep, heavy shadows of the unlit corridor welcome you back into their cool, protecting embrace. The rhythmic, muffled sound of your sandals resumes, a steady, hypnotic drumbeat echoing against the colossal inner core. With every measured step, you are climbing higher, ascending closer to the great lantern room, moving entirely at your own peaceful pace through the quiet heart of the ancient, silent sentinel. As you emerge from the rhythmic, cooling shadows of the long, spiraling ramp, the path finally levels out, transitioning from the continuous incline into a wide circular landing that serves as the administrative and personal heart of the tower. You have reached the Keeper's Watch Room, a space where the monumental, impersonal scale of Roman engineering softens into the intimate, detailed textures of a lived-in human life. The air here is noticeably different from the bracing, wind-swept corridor you just departed. It is remarkably still, holding a concentrated warmth that suggests the long-term residence of a living soul. The atmosphere is thick and layered with a complex bouquet of comforting domestic aromas that instantly ground your senses. The most prominent scent is that of aged, sun-dried papyrus and old parchment, a dry, slightly sweet and grassy fragrance that fills the room with the quiet dignity of a library. Mingled with this is the faint, acrid but not unpleasant tang of soot from a small, charcoal-burning brazier, and the rich, earthy perfume of dried Mediterranean herbs, thyme, rosemary and lavender, hanging in small, dusty bundles from the low, vaulted ceiling. This room is a sanctuary of order and quiet dedication, tucked safely away within the immense granite shell of the lighthouse, and as you stand at its threshold, you feel an immediate, profound sense of being welcomed into a private, sacred space of vigil. To your left, nestled into the gentle curve of the masonry, sits a heavy utilitarian desk crafted from dark, oil-rubbed walnut. The wood is dense and incredibly sturdy, its surface polished to a deep mirror-like luster by decades of the keeper's forearms resting upon it during long midnight hours of record-keeping. Spread across this dark surface is a large, sprawling map of the coastline, drawn on a massive sheet of thick, cream-colored vellum. Take a moment to lean over the desk, allowing your eyes to trace the meticulous detail of the cartographer's art. The vellum feels surprisingly heavy and slightly oily beneath your fingers, its edges curled and slightly yellowed with age. The ink used is a deep charcoal black made from oak galls and iron salts, and it sits upon the surface of the parchment with a slight tactile raise. You can see the tiny, elegant Latin script labelling the dangerous shoals, the hidden coves, and the distant, bustling ports of Gades and Olisipo. Tiny, hand-painted illustrations of sea monsters and billowing clouds decorate the margins, their colours, burnt orange, cinnabar red, and lapis lazuli blue, faintly shimmering in the dim light. Beside the map sits a small cylindrical bronze container holding a collection of sharpened reed pens known as kalami, their split nibs still holding the faint dried residue of the day's entries. The sight of these simple tools resting so peacefully on the dark wood speaks of a life governed by precise observation and the careful, slow documentation of the sea's changing moods. Directly across from the desk, a small bronze-legged stool is draped with a thick, luxurious fleece of unshorn sheep's wool. The wool is a natural creamy white, though it has taken on a slightly golden hue from the constant ambient glow of the oil lamps. If you were to sit upon it, you would feel the incredible springy resilience of the fibres, offering a soft, insulating warmth against the inherent chill of the stone floor. Next to the stool stands a small tripod-mounted brazier made of hammered copper, its surface dimpled and darkened by the heat of countless small fires. Within the shallow bowl of the brazier lie the glowing ruby-red embers of olive-wood charcoal, which produce no smoke, only a steady radiating heat that shimmers in the air like a transparent veil. On a small ledge just above the brazier rests a humble ceramic cup filled with a warm infusion of mountain honey and dried mint. The steam rising from the cup carries a refreshing, sweet scent that cuts through the heavier aromas of the room, inviting you to imagine the keeper taking a slow, meditative sip as they watch the stars through the high, narrow windows. This is a room of deliberate, necessary comforts where every object has been chosen for its utility and its ability to provide a sense of home in this isolated, lofty outpost. Against the far wall, a series of wooden shelves are built directly into the stone recesses, holding the essential supplies for the lighthouse's eternal flame. Here you see small, neatly stacked bricks of beeswax, their surfaces pale and slightly tacky to the touch, smelling intensely of summer wildflowers and distant hives. Beside them are ceramic jars filled with various grades of refined oils, each labeled with small wooden tags tied with twine. There are also bundles of spare wicks meticulously braided from the finest Egyptian flax, looking like long white tresses of silk resting in the shadows. The organization of these supplies is impeccable. It is the visual manifestation of a profound responsibility, a silent oath that the light shall never, under any circumstances, be allowed to falter. The keeper's life is one of constant rhythmic preparation, a slow-motion dance of maintenance that ensures the safety of unseen sailors miles out at sea. Even the floor of this room reflects this dedication. The stone slabs are meticulously swept, free of the dust and grit found on the ramp below, and the air feels purified by the constant, gentle presence of the aromatic herbs and the clean-burning charcoal. In a quiet corner of the room, almost hidden in the deeper shadows, stands a small private shrine, a lararium dedicated to the spirits of the home and the guardians of the sea. It is a simple, miniature temple facade carved from white Carrara marble, its cool, smooth surface standing out sharply against the grey granite of the tower wall. Within the tiny, arched opening of the shrine sit small, bronze figurines of Neptune with his trident, and a humble, seated figure representing the La, the protector of the household. Tiny, shallow bowl of fine salt and a small withered laurel wreath lie before them, offerings made in the early hours of the dawn to ensure the continued favour of the gods. The presence of this shrine adds a deeply spiritual dimension to the tower, transforming the lighthouse from a mere machine of navigation into a sacred space of protection. The silence here is not just the absence of noise, it is a heavy, reverent quiet, a stillness that honors both the vast, terrifying power of the ocean and the small, brave flicker of human civilization that dares to challenge the darkness. You feel a deep, grounding peace in this room, a sense of being anchored in a long, unbroken chain of human vigilance that stretches back through the generations. As you prepare to leave this domestic sanctuary and continue your ascent toward the final, crowning height of the lantern room, take one last, long look around the watchroom. Notice the way the flickering light from the brazier plays across the dark walnut desk, the way the shadows of the hanging herbs dance softly upon the vaulted ceiling, and the way the distant, muffled roar of the sea provides a constant rhythmic bass note to the room's internal quiet. This is the place where the human spirit meets the monumental stone, where the vastness of history is distilled into the scent of parchment and the warmth of a charcoal fire. It is a room of profound, unhurried peace, a place where time is measured not by the frantic ticking of a clock, but by the slow, steady consumption of oil and the gradual rotation of the celestial spheres. With a heart made light by the simple, enduring beauty of this space, you step back out onto the landing, ready to face the final, majestic climb toward the summit of the world. The air of the corridor welcomes you back, but you carry the warmth and the scent of the watchroom with you, a comforting memory that shields you against the deepening cold of the high-altitude night. Stepping out from the keeper's watchroom, the transition back into the spiraling corridor feels like entering a deep architectural dream. The warmth of the charcoal brazier and the sweet herbal scent of the private sanctuary linger in your senses for only a moment before the immense cool breath of the tower's throat reclaims you. The ramp here continues its elegant upward tilt, but the curve feels tighter now, more intimate, as the exterior walls of the lighthouse begin to gently taper inward toward the summit. This subtle change in geometry creates a sensation of being drawn closer to the central core, the massive granite spine that has been your unmoving companion since the base. The light in this section of the climb is exceptionally sparse, relying only on the faint, ethereal glow that filters up from the lower levels and down from the distant lantern room above. It is a world of soft charcoal greys and deep velvety blacks, where the only reality is the texture of the stone against your palm and the rhythmic, hollow sound of your own progress. Focus your entire attention on the massive interior wall to your left. Here the granite blocks are of an even greater scale than those below, each one a monolithic testament to the sheer physical power of the Roman Empire. As you trail your fingers across the surface, you notice how the moisture of the high coastal air has interacted with the minerals in the stone. In some places, the granite feels surprisingly slick, almost like polished glass, where a fine, microscopic film of condensation has settled over the centuries. In other areas, the stone is dry and toothy, its crystalline structure biting gently into the skin of your fingertips. You can feel the distinct pulse of the building, not a mechanical throb, but a deep geological resonance. The tower is so massive, so perfectly balanced, that it vibrates in a low subsonic frequency as the heavy Atlantic swells strike the cliffs far below. This vibration travels through the bedrock, up through the foundations, and into the very stones you are touching. It is a slow, rhythmic humming that you feel in your bones, a grounding sensation that reminds you that you are part of a structure that is, for all intents and purposes, an extension of the earth itself. The silence in this elevated section of the ramp is remarkably layered, because you are now far removed from the ground and shielded by several feet of solid masonry. The external world has almost entirely vanished. If you stop walking, the silence is so profound that you can hear the soft, rhythmic rush of blood in your own ears, a sound that strangely mimics the distant surge of the tide. But then, as you hold your breath, a new sound emerges, the whisper of the stones. Ancient buildings of this magnitude are never truly silent. They are constantly settling, expanding, and contracting with the shifts in temperature. You might hear a faint crystalline clink from deep within the wall, or a soft, papery sigh as the heavy timber braces adjust their weight. These are the sounds of the lighthouse breathing, a slow-motion life that unfolds over centuries rather than seconds. To listen to these sounds is to experience time on a different scale, one where a human life is but a brief, flickering spark against the enduring darkness of the granite. Looking down at the herringbone bricks of the opus spicatum path, you notice that the wear patterns have changed. Near the base, the bricks were worn evenly across the width of the ramp, but here, the path of most frequent travel has narrowed into a single polished ribbon of terracotta. This is where the keepers, for over 100 years, have walked in their solitary vigils, their leather-bound feet following the exact same trajectory night after night. By placing your feet within this smooth, slightly concave groove, you are participating in a century-long procession of duty. The bricks in this groove are no longer rough. They have been buffed to a dull, satin-like sheen, reflecting the faint ambient light like a dark subterranean river. There is a profound comfort in this physical connection to the past, a realization that you are not the first to seek the summit in the silence of the night, nor will you be the last. The repetitive geometry of the bricks acts as a visual anchor, preventing your mind from wandering too far into the shadows and keeping you focused on the simple, meditative act of the ascent. In this part of the tower, the air has taken on a peculiar, mineral-like purity. The scents of the lower levels, the olive oil, the wood smoke, the sea salt, have all been filtered through the cold stone until only the smell of the granite itself remains. It is a dry, clean and ancient scent, reminiscent of a mountain cave or a deep, shadowed canyon. It is an aroma that feels old in a way that is difficult to describe, a scent of time made physical. As you breathe it in, your lungs feel expanded and clear, and your heart rate naturally slows to match the unhurried pace of your climb. There is no urgency here, no pressure to reach the top. The journey is the purpose, and every step taken in this cool, silent darkness is a step deeper into a state of total, unwavering tranquility. You are moving through a space that was designed to be timeless, and for a few precious moments you are becoming timeless along with it. As the ramp continues its patient spiral, you notice that the vaulted ceiling above you has become slightly lower, the heavy stones of the vault pressing in with a protective, sheltering weight. The shadows here seem to have a physical presence, wrapping around your shoulders like a heavy, unseen cloak. Yet there is no fear in this darkness, only a sense of absolute privacy and security. You are in the very marrow of the world's greatest empire, protected by walls that have seen the rise and fall of emperors, the passage of great fleets, and the slow, inevitable turning of the constellations. The world outside, with all its noise and complexity, has been reduced to a distant, irrelevant memory. Here, in the heart of the Roman stone, there is only the cool air, the smooth bricks beneath your feet, and the infinite soothing spiral that leads you, step by rhythmic step, toward the stars. You pause for one more moment, leaning your shoulder against the central core, feeling the unyielding strength of the granite support you, and then, with a slow, deep breath, you continue your hypnotic ascent into the deepening majesty of the night. As you continue to follow the tightening spiral of the path, the architectural narrative of the tower shifts once more, revealing the hidden labor that sustains the light. You are now entering the high-altitude storage registers, where the monumental granite walls are punctuated by heavy horizontal beams of ancient oak that disappear deep into the masonry. These beams, dark as obsidian and hard as iron, support an intermediate flooring system that once held the heavy reserves of fuel and supplies required for the long winter months when the Atlantic gales made the ascent nearly impossible for the pack animals. Standing beneath these massive timbers, you can feel the sheer structural tension of the building. The wood does not sag, rather it seems to vibrate with the stored energy of the centuries, a silent woody resonance that complements the mineral hum of the granite. The ceiling above this section is not the smooth barrel vault of the lower ramp, but a series of exposed hand-hewn planks, each one bearing the rhythmic scalloped marks of the adze. The texture of the wood is fascinatingly complex, cracked and weathered by the dry internal air, yet still possessing a faint, lingering scent of tannins and deep forest sap, a ghost of the Iberian mountains from which these trees were taken. Lower your gaze to the wall on your right, the central core that has been your steady guide. Here you find a series of iron rings forged in a heavy utilitarian style, bolted into the stone at regular intervals. These rings were used to anchor the ropes and pulleys that hoisted the heaviest amphorae and bundles of wood up through the central void of the tower. Reach out and touch the cold pitted surface of one of these rings. It is encrusted with a thick, dark layer of oxidation, but where the heavy ropes once rubbed against the metal, there is a smooth, polished groove, a bright silver scar in the iron that speaks of years of heavy labor. The friction of the hemp and the weight of the cargo have left a permanent record of the effort required to keep the flame alive. This is the hidden history of the lighthouse, not the glorious light at the top, but the grinding, repetitive and essential work of the supply chain. Feeling the cold iron beneath your fingertips, you are reminded of the hundreds of hands that have gripped these very rings, their muscles straining in the dim light to ensure that the ships at sea remain safe. The air in this section is remarkably dry, and it carries a unique, multifaceted aroma. In addition to the scent of the ancient oak and the metallic tang of the iron, there is a faint, lingering smell of dried animal hide and old leather. This comes from the heavy panniers and harnesses once worn by the mules that climbed this ramp. Even though the animals are long gone, the porous nature of the stone and wood has absorbed the essence of their presence. It is a warm, musky scent that adds a layer of biological history to the cold, inorganic world of the granite. You might also detect the very faint, sweet aroma of sun-dried straw used to pack the delicate ceramic jars during their journey. These scents do not conflict. Instead, they weave together into a rich atmospheric tapestry that tells a story of the interconnectedness of life and industry. You are breathing in the collective memory of a functioning Roman outpost, a place where the animal, the vegetable, and the mineral were all harnessed in service of a single noble purpose. As you walk, notice how the acoustics of the ramp have changed once again. The ceiling is lower here, and the presence of the wooden beams and planks acts as a natural sound dampener. The rhythmic thwomp of your sandals is no longer followed by a long, echoing sigh. Instead, the sound is clipped, immediate, and intimate. It feels as if the tower is leaning in to whisper a secret to you. The silence is more crowded here, filled with the textures of the various materials surrounding you. If you pause and listen closely, you can hear the very faint, rhythmic creak of the wooden flooring above, a sound like a ship's hull at sea. The lighthouse is, in many ways, a stone vessel, sailing through the currents of time, and in this section, the similarity is most profound. The wood and stonework together, a harmonious union of flexibility and strength that allows the tower to stand unyielding against the invisible weight of the night. Looking at the floor, you see that the opus spicatum bricks have taken on a darker, richer hue, perhaps from the occasional spill of oil or the rubbing of leather over many decades. The zigzag pattern seems more pronounced in this light, creating a dizzying, hypnotic effect as you round the curve. The geometry of the floor acts as a visual tether, keeping you grounded as the walls seem to close in. You are moving through a bottleneck of history, a transitional space where the raw power of the base is refined into the focused purpose of the summit. Every step you take feels more significant, more deliberate as the air grows colder and the silence grows deeper. You are shedding the last vestiges of the world below, preparing your mind and body for the vast open expanse that awaits you at the top. The transition from this timbered section back into the pure stone vaulting is subtle. The wooden beams gradually give way to the returning granite, and the air becomes crisper and more mineral-rich once again. But you carry the memory of the wood and the iron with you, a reminder that even the most monumental structures are built upon the foundation of humble everyday labor. You take a long, slow breath, feeling the expansion of your chest in the quiet darkness, and settle back into the steady, unwavering rhythm of the spiral. The light of the lantern room is still far above, but you can sense its presence, a faint, pulsing energy that guides your spirit through the heart of the stone. You are a traveler in time, a silent observer of the ancient ways, and the path ahead is as clear and certain as the stars that watch over the Roman sea. As you emerge from the timbered shadows of the storage registers, the lighthouse opens into a series of mid-level voids, spaces where the architectural weight seems to shift, creating an atmosphere of profound, hollow stillness. Here the spiraling ramp continues its patient journey, but the central core is now punctuated by small, rectangular ventilation shafts that draw the cool, salt-heavy air from the exterior through the very heart of the masonry. These shafts act as natural organ pipes, catching the high-altitude currents and transforming them into a low, ghostly hum that vibrates through the soles of your feet. This is the granular silence of the tower, a quiet so thick and textured that it feels as if you could reach out and run your fingers through it. The air is remarkably crisp, carrying the sharp, clean scent of crushed limestone and the ancient dry dust of the quarry. There is no trace of the domestic warmth from the rooms below. Here the lighthouse is purely a creature of stone and wind, a silent sentinel standing guard over the invisible boundary between the earth and the heavens. Lean your shoulder against the outer wall and observe the play of light because of the way the Roman architects angled the internal splays of the windows. The moonlight, now beginning to ascend in the sky, filters into the corridor in long silvery blades. These beams do not illuminate the room so much as they cut through the darkness, revealing the millions of microscopic salt crystals that have permeated the granite. The stone appears to shimmer with a ghostly internal light, as if the very atoms of the building were vibrating in sympathy with the lunar cycle. As you move through these blades of light, your shadow is cast long and distorted against the central core, a dark, rhythmic shape that seems to dance in slow motion. The visual effect is deeply hypnotic, a kaleidoscope of silver and obsidian that reinforces the steady, unwavering cadence of your climb. You are no longer just a visitor in this space. You have become part of its slow, circular geometry, a living element in a monumental stone machine designed to outlast the centuries. The texture of the air in these mid-level voids is exceptionally dry, which has preserved the structural details of the masonry with startling clarity. Look closely at the joints between the massive granite blocks. The mortar here, a sophisticated Roman mixture of lime and volcanic pozzolana, has hardened into a substance as durable as the stone itself. In some places, you can see the faint impressions of the wooden trowels used by the masons in AD 110, the horizontal ridges left in the wet lime before it set forever. These are the fingerprints of history, tangible evidence of the human hands that moved these mountains of stone into place. To touch these ridges is to collapse the distance of nearly 2,000 years, feeling the echo of the laborer's effort in the stillness of the night. The scent of this mortar is faint but distinct, a chalky mineral aroma that smells like the very beginning of the world, a time of raw elements and unyielding purpose. As you continue upward, the sound of the ocean begins to change. The deep, percussive boom of the waves against the cliff base is now a distant rhythmic pulse, replaced by a higher, more complex sound, the shirring of the wind against the tower's exterior surface. At this height, the wind is not a single force, but a choir of different frequencies. You can hear the low whistle as it passes over the sharp edges of the granite blocks, the mid-range moan as it circles the curve of the tower, and the high-pitched hiss as it catches the rough texture of the lichen. This acoustic environment is incredibly soothing, a natural symphony that masks the sound of your own breathing and lulls your mind into a state of meditative focus. Your thoughts become as clear and uncomplicated as the architecture surrounding you, shedding the complexities of the modern world in favor of the simple, enduring reality of the stone. The ramp beneath your feet remains the steady herringbone-patterned constant of your journey. However, you may notice that the bricks here are slightly cooler to the touch than those below. The ambient temperature of the tower has dropped as you've ascended, and the thermal mass of the granite now radiates a refreshing, bracing chill. This coldness is not biting or uncomfortable, rather it acts as a gentle stimulant, keeping you alert and present in the moment. The physical sensation of your leather sandals gripping the textured clay provides a grounding counterpoint to the ethereal, silvery light and the ghostly hum of the wind. You are perfectly balanced between the heavy terrestrial strength of the path and the light, celestial energy of the heights you are approaching. Every step feels lighter, as if the gravity of the earth is slowly losing its grip on your spirit. In one of the deeper recesses of the wall you find a small, forgotten architectural detail, a leveling mark chiseled into the stone by an overseer. It is a simple horizontal line with a vertical cross, a mark of precision and accountability. This tiny detail, hidden in the shadows of the mid-level void, represents the profound integrity of Roman construction. Even here, in the dark, in a place rarely seen by anyone but the keepers, The work was done to the highest standard. This realization brings a sense of deep, quiet satisfaction. You are traveling through a world built on the principles of firmitas, utilitas, and venustas, strength, utility, and beauty. The lighthouse is a physical manifestation of these virtues, and as you breathe in the cool mineral air, you feel these qualities reflected in your own state of mind. You are strong, you are purposeful, and you are surrounded by a stark, magnificent beauty. The climb continues, the spiral drawing you ever closer to the ultimate goal. The air grows even thinner and sharper, and the light from above begins to take on a new character, a warm, flickering amber that suggests the proximity of the great flame. But for now you remain in the cool silver-grey embrace of the mid-levels, savouring the granular silence and the rhythmic whisper of the granite. You take a slow, deep and restorative breath, allowing the ancient scent of the stone to fill your lungs one last time before the atmosphere shifts again. The transition is coming, the final ascent is near, but in this moment you are perfectly content to be exactly where you are, a silent traveller in the heart of a Roman masterpiece, moving through the quiet voids of history at the pace of a dream. Your heart beats in time with the subsonic hum of the tower, and with a soft, steady step you move forward into the deepening, majestic peace of the night. As you move beyond the mid-level voids, the spiral ramp begins its final, most intimate contraction. The central core of the tower, that monumental spine of granite, is now so close that you could almost reach out both arms and embrace the curvature of the inner and outer walls simultaneously. This narrowing of the architectural space does not feel restrictive. Rather, it creates a profound sense of being cradled within the very marrow of the lighthouse. The air here has undergone another subtle, beautiful transformation. The sharp, mineral chill of the lower stone has been softened by a rising atmospheric warmth drifting down from the lantern room above. It is a dry, comforting heat that carries the faint, toasted scent of heated stone and the ancient, resinous ghost of burning cedar. This warmth acts as a gentle, invisible guide, pulling you upward through the deepening shadows toward the crown of the world. Take a moment to pause and lean your back against the inner core. As you do, you become aware of a new acoustic phenomenon. The tower at this height acts as a colossal resonator for the ocean's voice. The thick granite walls, which felt so silent and immovable below, now seem to hum with a low-frequency vibration that is almost melodic. It is the sound of the Atlantic's power being filtered through millions of tons of Roman masonry. This sound is a deep subterranean thrum, a constant and rhythmic that resonates within your chest and aligns itself with the steady, slow beating of your heart. In this high, narrow corridor, the silence is no longer an absence of sound, but a rich harmonic presence. It is the sound of time itself, vibrating through the crystalline structure of the rock, a geological lullaby that settles your mind into a state of total, unwavering tranquility. Looking up at the vaulted ceiling, you notice that the craftsmanship has reached a pinnacle of precision. The stones of the vault are no longer the large, rugged blocks of the base, but smaller, elegantly tapered wedges of pale limestone that reflect the faint amber light from above. The mortar lines are as thin as a strand of silk, creating a smooth, sweeping surface that looks like the interior of a massive petrified seashell. Trace the curve of the vault with your eyes. The geometry is so perfect, so mathematically sound, that it provides a visual sense of absolute security. You are held within a masterpiece of Roman engineering, a structure designed to withstand not just the gales of the Atlantic, but the slow eroding passage of millennia. The pale colour of the limestone adds a lightness to the atmosphere, a soft, ethereal quality that contrasts beautifully with the dark, heavy granite of the central core. Lowering your gaze to the path, you find that the opus spicatum bricks have changed once again. Here, near the summit, the clay has been fired to an even higher density, resulting in a surface that is remarkably smooth and almost metallic in its resonance. When your sandals make contact with these bricks, the sound is no longer a muffled thwomp, but a clear, melodic tap that echoes softly up the spiral. The wear on these bricks is different too. Instead of a broad, polished groove, there are tiny, localized areas of smoothness where generations of keepers have placed their feet with extreme care. mindful of the precious cargo of oil or wood they were carrying. These tiny footprints of history are like a map of human dedication, a record of the countless quiet ascents made in the service of the light. You place your feet exactly where they once trod, feeling a deep, silent connection to the chain of guardians who have maintained this vigil since the days of Trajan. The scent in this upper reaches of the ramp is perhaps the most complex of all. It is a tapestry of all the levels you have passed through, distilled by the height and the warmth into a single intoxicating perfume. There is the base note of the salt-heavy ocean, the mid-note of the dry mineral granite, and the high sweet note of the rising heat, a scent of baked earth, old parchment, and the very first hint of the great aromatic fire that burns above. If you close your eyes and breathe in deeply, the aroma seems to expand within your mind, creating a vivid internal landscape of the Roman world, the sun-drenched quarries of the interior, the bustling ports of the coast, and the silent starlit nights of the Atlantic. It is an aroma that tells a story of civilization's triumph over the dark, a fragrance of endurance and light. As you resume your climb, you notice that the light is changing. The silvery blades of moonlight are being replaced by a rhythmic, pulsing amber glow that washes down the stairs in slow, measured waves. This is the heartbeat of the lighthouse, the visual signature of the great lantern room. The glow is warm and inviting, casting long, soft shadows that stretch and contract against the curving walls. Every few seconds, the light intensifies, illuminating the textures of the stone with a brilliant golden clarity, before fading back into a gentle charcoal gloom. This rhythmic play of light and shadow is deeply hypnotic, a visual metronome that regulates your pace and draws you further into a state of meditative bliss. You are no longer conscious of the physical effort of the climb. You are simply floating upward, carried by the rhythm of the light and the steady harmonic hum of the stone. The transition to the final section of the ramp is marked by a wide stone landing where the spiraling path finally comes to an end. This landing is a space of transition, a quiet, shadowed plateau before the final ascent into the lantern room itself. Here the air is perfectly still, and the warmth is as palpable as a physical embrace. You stand for a moment in the center of the landing, allowing your senses to absorb the profound peace of the upper masonry. The world below is now a distant, forgotten memory, and the world above is a brilliant, approaching promise. You are suspended in the quiet heart of history, a silent traveler at the edge of the heavens, ready to step into the presence of the eternal flame. With a slow, deep exhalation, you turn toward the final set of stairs, your spirit light and your mind clear, moving with grace into the deepening, majestic glow of the Roman night. The final transition from the spiraling ramp to the crown of the tower is marked by a dramatic shift in both architecture and atmosphere. You have arrived at the summit plateau, a massive, circular platform of polished travertine that serves as the foundation for the great lantern room. As your sandals leave the textured herringbone bricks and step onto this smooth, pale stone, the sound of your movement changes once more. The travertine, a porous and regal limestone brought from the Italian heartland, possesses a soft acoustic quality. It swallows the sound of your footsteps, leaving you in a state of near-silent suspension. The air here is no longer merely warm, it is vibrant, charged with the immense energy of the great fire that lives just a few feet above your head. It is a dry, golden heat that feels like a physical presence, a comforting weight that presses gently against your skin, encouraging every muscle in your body to release its final lingering remnants of tension. Standing in the center of this transition chamber, you are surrounded by a ring of colossal bronze pillars that support the weight of the lantern's dome. These pillars are masterpieces of the Roman foundry, thick as the trunk of an ancient oak and fluted with deep vertical channels that draw the eye upward toward the source of the light. The metal has been polished by the heat and the constant care of the keepers, glowing with a deep, dark luster that resembles molten chocolate. If you reach out and brush your fingers against the bronze, you can feel the intense vibration of the tower's peak. Up here, at the very tip of the stone finger pointing at the stars, the wind and the sea combine into a single rhythmic pulse. The pillars hum with a low, resonant frequency, a metallic song that harmonizes with the deep, mineral groan of the granite below. It is a sound of absolute stability, a sensory reassurance that despite the height and the exposure, you are standing upon the most secure point in the known world. Looking upward, the ceiling of this chamber is a marvel of geometric complexity. A series of interlocking stone ribs carved from the same pale limestone as the ramp's vault radiate outward from a central oculus like the spokes of a celestial wheel. The spaces between these ribs are filled with thin, translucent sheets of selenite, a crystalline form of gypsum known to the Romans as lapis specularis. Through these milky moon-like panes, the fierce amber glow of the fire filters downward, transformed into a soft, diffused luminescence that paints the room in shades of honey and cream. This light does not cast harsh shadows. Instead, it wraps around the bronze pillars and the stone walls, creating a world without edges, a sanctuary of golden fog where time seems to have slowed to a complete standstill. You find yourself breathing in synchronization with the light, your chest rising and falling in time with the slow, rhythmic pulsing of the great flame above. The aroma at this height is the very essence of the lighthouse's purpose. It is a concentrated, intoxicating perfume of high-grade, triple-pressed olive oil being transformed into pure energy. This is not the heavy, fatty smell of a kitchen, but a refined, ethereal scent, clean, slightly nutty, and deeply ancient. Mingled with this is the sharp, bracing smell of the Atlantic ozone which manages to seep through the ventilation slits even here, and the dry, peppery scent of the heated bronze. It is a fragrance that speaks of civilization's highest aspirations, the use of the Earth's bounty to create a guiding star for those lost in the darkness. As you inhale, you feel as though the scent itself is nourishing you, clearing your mind of all remaining distractions and leaving you in a state of profound crystalline awareness. You are standing at the interface between the human and the divine, between the labor of the earth and the light of the heavens. To your right, a small, semicircular stone bench is carved directly into the wall, its surface smoothed by centuries of resting keepers. Beside it stands a large bronze tripod holding a shallow basin of clear, cool water. This was used by the keepers to wash the salt from their eyes and faces after the long ascent, a ritual of purification before tending to the flame. You might imagine the feeling of that water, crisp, refreshing, and biting, contrasting with the ambient heat of the room. The simplicity of these objects, the stone bench, the bronze basin, the clear water, highlights the monastic nature of the lighthouse vigil. It is a life stripped of superfluity, an existence dedicated entirely to the maintenance of a single vital point of light. The silence here is heavy with this sense of duty, a reverent stillness that honors the millions of lives that depend on the constancy of this beacon. As you prepare to take the final few steps up the narrow bronze-plated stairs that lead directly into the lantern room, you pause to look back at the way you have come. The dark, spiraling throat of the tower is now invisible, lost in the soft golden haze of the transition chamber. You have climbed from the salt-crusted rocks of the shore through the mineral heart of the mountain and into the very presence of the fire. Every step has been a shedding of the world's noise, a gradual descent into a more profound, more authentic state of being. You feel light as if the physical weight of your body has been replaced by the buoyancy of the air. The rhythm of the great flame calls to you, a pulsing golden invitation to witness the ultimate triumph of the Roman spirit over the mysteries of the deep. With a heart full of peace and a mind as clear as the night sky, you place your hand on the warm bronze railing and begin the final, majestic ascent into the light. As you ascend the final bronze-plated steps, the air undergoes its most dramatic transformation, becoming a living, breathing entity of pure warmth and golden radiance. You have finally entered the lantern room, the glass and bronze crown of the lighthouse, where the ancient world's most sophisticated technology meets the raw primal power of fire. The chamber is a perfect circle, an island of brilliant illumination suspended between the dark, churning ocean below and the infinite, starlit canopy above. At the center of this room stands the great flame, housed within a monumental bronze burner that is a masterpiece of Roman metallurgy. The fire is not a chaotic, flickering thing. It is a disciplined, roaring column of light fed by a continuous stream of the finest, clarified olive oil. The sound of the flame is a deep, comforting thrum, a low-frequency vibration that fills the room like the purr of a massive, contented beast. It is a sound that masks all others, creating a cocoon of acoustic privacy that feels both powerful and profoundly protective. The light produced by this great fire is unlike any you have ever experienced. It is a rich, saturated amber that seems to have a physical weight, filling every corner of the room with a liquid gold. Because the lantern is surrounded by thick panes of carefully polished glass and massive, parabolic reflectors of hammered silver and bronze, the light is caught, concentrated, and flung outward into the night. Within the room, however, you are standing in the backglow, the soft secondary radiance that reflects off the silver surfaces. This light highlights the microscopic details of your surroundings with an almost supernatural clarity. You can see the tiny swirling patterns in the glass panes, the minute hammer marks on the silver reflectors, and the delicate shimmering heat haze that dances above the burner. This haze creates a gentle distortion in the air, making the world outside the glass look like a distant moving painting, a landscape of indigo waves and white foam seen through a veil of shifting gold. Take a moment to approach one of the massive silver reflectors. The metal is incredibly smooth and surprisingly hot, radiating a dry, penetrating warmth that seeps into your bones. As you look into its curved surface, your own reflection is stretched and distorted into a long, shimmering ghost of golden light. The silver has been polished to such a high degree that it seems to disappear, leaving only a hole in the air where the light is intensified. This is the secret of the Roman beacon, the ability to harness the humble flame and project it for 30 miles across the sea. The scent here is a concentrated version of the transition chamber. The sweet, toasted aroma of the olive oil, the metallic tang of the hot silver, and a faint ozone-like scent produced by the intense heat interacting with the salt-heavy air. It is a fragrance of energy and purpose, a scent that clears the mind and sharpens the senses to a point of absolute crystalline focus. Beneath your feet, the floor of the lantern room is made of heavy, heat-resistant bronze plates, bolted together with massive, flush-mounted rivets. The metal is warm, almost hot, through the soles of your sandals, providing a constant grounding reminder of the immense power contained within this small space. There is a profound sense of isolation here, but it is a lofty isolation, the feeling of being at the very tip of a spear of civilization, standing guard at the edge of the known universe. You are the silent observer of the sea's vastness, the one who watches over the invisible paths of the merchant fleets and the lonely fishing boats. The silence of the tower below is replaced here by the white noise of the flame and the distant, muffled roar of the wind against the glass, a combination that acts as a powerful, hypnotic sedative for the soul. Looking through the glass toward the western horizon, you can see the long, straight beam of the lighthouse cutting through the dark. It is a solid bar of gold, a physical bridge of light that connects the solid granite of the tower to the fluid, unpredictable ocean. Within this beam you can see the swirling mists of the night and the occasional distant glint of a cresting wave. The contrast between the absolute safety and warmth of the lantern room and the cold, dark, and indifferent Atlantic is breathtaking. It reinforces a sense of deep internal peace, the knowledge that no matter how vast or dark the world outside may be, there is a center of light, order, and warmth that remains unyielding. You are standing at the heart of that center, a guest in the sanctuary of the flame. As you stand by the burner, you notice a small bronze hand crank and a series of heavy gears connected to the central shaft. This is the mechanism that allows the keeper to slowly rotate the screens around the light, creating the rhythmic flash that identifies this specific lighthouse to sailors. The gears are meticulously oiled, their teeth meshing with a silent, heavy precision. The slow mechanical turning of the apparatus adds a rhythmic, clicking pulse to the room's atmosphere, a tiny, industrious sound that emphasizes the human ingenuity behind the beacon. Every part of this room, from the massive silver reflectors to the smallest brass gear, is dedicated to the preservation of life and the continuity of trade. It is a space of profound, focused beauty, where every element has been refined to its ultimate functional expression. The heat of the room begins to lull you into a state of deep, heavy relaxation. Your eyelids feel heavy, and your breathing has slowed to a deep, rhythmic cadence that matches the thrum of the fire. There is nothing left for you to do, nowhere else for you to go. You have reached the summit, the very source of the light, and you are welcome to stay here in the golden glow for as long as you need. The world below is gone. There is only the flame, the silver, and the infinite peaceful night. You take a final deep breath of the warm, toasted air, feeling the profound, heavy tranquility of the Roman summit settling over you like a weighted velvet blanket. You are safe, you are warm, and you are held within the magnificent golden heart of history. As you stand within the golden, vibrating heart of the lantern room, a profound sense of temporal displacement washes over you, as gentle and persistent as the incoming tide. Here, at the apex of the Roman world, the concepts of minutes, hours, and days begin to dissolve, replaced by a much older, more expansive understanding of time. This lighthouse, this magnificent finger of stone reaching toward the heavens, is not merely a tool for navigation, it is a philosophical monument, a physical manifestation of the Roman belief in aeternitas, the enduring, everlasting nature of civilization. Looking down at the massive bronze plates beneath your sandals, you realize that you are standing upon a structure designed to outlast the very empire that birthed it. The granite blocks, the forged iron, and the heavy timber were all selected and assembled with the deliberate intention of defying the slow, corrosive entropy of the centuries. In this high-heated sanctuary, you are invited to reflect on the beauty of human persistence, the quiet, heroic defiance of a species that builds beacons of light in the face of an infinite and indifferent darkness. The silence that exists beneath the low thrum of the flame is a heavy, contemplative quiet. It is the silence of a library, yet one where the stories are written in stone and fire rather than ink and vellum. Consider the thousands of individuals who have stood in this exact spot since the year AD 110. Each keeper, each weary traveller, each curious visitor has brought their own burdens, their own secret joys, and their own fleeting anxieties to this summit, only to find them diminished by the sheer, overwhelming scale of the vista. From this height, the petty grievances of the marketplace and the complex intrigues of the Roman Senate seem like the frantic, unimportant scurrying of ants. The lighthouse offers a rare, panoramic perspective on existence, encouraging a state of mind that the ancient Stoics called ataraxia, a condition of serene calmness and total freedom from emotional distress. As you breathe in the warm, oil-scented air, you can feel this ancient serenity settling into your own spirit, a slow, cooling balm that smooths over the jagged edges of your modern worries and leaves you feeling centered, balanced, and remarkably light. Look out through the thick salt-streaked glass toward the invisible line where the dark ocean meets the darker sky. There is a deep, poetic irony in the lighthouse's existence. It is a fixed, immovable point designed to guide those who are constantly in motion. In the same way, the memories and traditions we carry from the past serve as the fixed points for our own wandering lives. The Roman engineers understood that for a civilization to thrive, it needed more than just roads and armies, it needed symbols of constancy. This tower is a promise kept to the future, a declaration that even in the deepest night there is a path back to safety. To be here, suspended in the amber glow of the great flame, is to be a part of that promise. You are not merely a spectator of history, you are a participant in a long, unbroken lineage of observation. The peace you feel is the same peace felt by a Roman sailor 2 millennia ago when he looked up from the deck of a grain ship and saw this very light pulsing against the clouds, a signal that the world was still ordered, that home was still within reach, and that the darkness was not absolute. The texture of the stone beneath the bronze plates, hidden from view but felt through the vibration of the fire, is the foundation of this philosophical weight. Every block of granite was quarried from the earth with a specific purpose, shaped by hands that believed in the permanence of their work. There is a profound dignity in that level of craftsmanship, a commitment to quality that transcends the individual life of the builder. As you lean your hand against a bronze pillar, feeling its stored heat, you are touching the physical embodiment of that dignity. The metal does not complain under the weight of the dome, the stone does not groan under the pressure of the wind, they simply are. They exist in a state of perfect, unhurried presence. By aligning your own internal rhythm with the slow geological pulse of the tower, you can access that same state of being, You become as steady as the granite, as purposeful as the flame, and as vast as the ocean that stretches away into the night. Think of the sleepy history you're experiencing not as a collection of dead facts, but as a living, breathing meditation on the nature of legacy. What remains when the shouting of the legions has faded and the emperors have returned to the dust? What remains is the light. What remains is the shelter provided by honest stone and the warmth of a shared fire. This realization brings a deep restorative sense of comfort. It suggests that the most important things, the things that truly endure, are simple, functional, and inherently peaceful. The complex machinery of the modern world often obscures this truth. But here, at the edge of the world in AD 110, it is impossible to ignore. The air you breathe is the same air that filled the lungs of the first keeper, and the peace that envelops you is the same peace that has guarded this summit for nearly 2,000 years. It is a timeless, universal tranquility that belongs to everyone and to no one, a gift from the past to the present. The flickering amber light of the lantern room acts as a visual mantra, focusing your thoughts on the present moment while simultaneously expanding your awareness to include the infinite. Each pulse of the beacon is a heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder that you are alive and safe. The shadows that stretch and contract across the travertine floor are like the ebb and flow of human history, sometimes long and dominant, sometimes short and retreating, but always part of a larger, balanced cycle. In this high sanctuary, the fear of change is replaced by an appreciation for continuity. You see that the darkness outside is not an enemy to be conquered, but a necessary canvas upon which the light can reveal its true beauty. The vastness of the Atlantic becomes a metaphor for the subconscious mind, deep, mysterious, and full of unknown currents, yet manageable, as long as one stays oriented toward the light. As the night deepens, the philosophical weight of the tower becomes even more pronounced. The stars above seem closer, their cold diamond light harmonizing with the warm golden light of the burner. You are caught between two fires, the celestial and the terrestrial. This alignment creates a feeling of profound integration, a sense that you are exactly where you are supposed to be in the grand architecture of the universe. There is a majestic, unhurried grace to the way the lighthouse stands its ground, and by being here, you are absorbing that grace into your own soul. Your breathing has become slow and deep, your heartbeat steady and calm. You are no longer thinking about history, you are feeling it, a heavy velvet presence that shields you from the world's noise and carries you toward a state of total blissful rest. The great flame continues its rhythmic thrum. The silver reflectors continue their silent projection, and you, the silent traveler, continue your journey into the deep, enduring peace of the Roman night. Deep within the high, heated chamber of the lantern, the physical structure of the lighthouse reveals its final, most profound secret, the principle of perfect equilibrium. To the Roman mind, a building of this magnitude was more than a stack of stones. It was an imitation of the cosmos itself, a balanced entity where every ounce of downward pressure was met with an equal and opposite upward strength. As you stand perfectly still, letting the golden warmth of the great flame envelop you like a heavy cloak, you can almost feel the mathematical precision of the tower's design. The architects of AD 110 worked with the golden ratio, a proportion they believed existed in the growth of seashells, the arrangement of flower petals, and the very stars themselves. Here, at the summit of the world, that geometry becomes a tangible physical sensation. You are standing at the exact center of a series of concentric circles, the burner, the bronze floor, the glass lantern, and the vast curving horizon of the Atlantic. This circularity is profoundly soothing to the human spirit. It offers no sharp, aggressive corners for the mind to snag upon, only an endless flowing loop of symmetry and grace. Look closely at the bronze pillars that rise to support the dome above you. They do not merely stand, they appear to reach, their fluted surfaces drawing the amber light upward in long, shimmering lines. These pillars were cast using the lost wax method, a process requiring months of patient preparation, where every detail was first carved in soft, yielding beeswax before being immortalized in molten metal. If you lean in and examine the very base of a pillar where it meets the travertine floor, you will see a small decorative flourish, a carved acanthus leaf, a symbol of enduring life and rebirth. Even here, in a space governed by the brutal requirements of fire and wind, the Romans found room for beauty. This juxtaposition of strength and elegance is a powerful metaphor for a well-lived life. It suggests that one can be as unyielding as bronze while remaining as delicate and intricate as a leaf. The scent of the heated metal, a sharp, clean, and slightly sweet aroma, mingles with the heavy toasted perfume of the olive oil, creating a fragrance of civilized power that fills your lungs and calms your racing thoughts. Beyond the glass, the stars have shifted their positions, moving in their slow, majestic arcs across the velvet sky. From this vantage point, you are not merely looking at the heavens, you are part of them. The lighthouse serves as a terrestrial star, a fixed point of light that mirrors the celestial lights above. The Roman astronomers believed that the planets moved in spheres, creating a subtle celestial music that could only be heard by a soul in a state of perfect stillness. In the profound, heavy quiet of the lantern room, interrupted only by the rhythmic, low-frequency thrum of the flame, you can almost perceive this music. It is not a sound for the ears, but a resonance for the heart, a feeling of being perfectly tuned to the frequency of the universe. The anxieties of your modern life, the deadlines, the digital noise, the frantic pace of the city are revealed to be discordant notes that simply cannot exist in this space of pure harmonic proportion. You feel your internal strings loosening one by one until your entire being vibrates in sympathy with the steady golden pulse of the Roman beacon. The glass panes that separate you from the infinite night are themselves a marvel of ancient industry. They are thick, slightly green-tinted and filled with tiny suspended air bubbles, little seeds of history trapped in the cooling silica. As the light from the great flame passes through these panes, it is subtly refracted, creating a gentle, shimmering distortion that makes the distant waves look like a moving tapestry of liquid obsidian. If you place your forehead against the glass, you can feel the incredible contrast of the lighthouse's existence. The interior surface is hot from the fire, while the exterior is chilled by the Atlantic wind. This thermal tension is what keeps the glass strong, a constant, invisible battle between the heat of civilization and the cold of the wild. You are the silent observer at the very center of this conflict, yet you are entirely safe, protected by the ingenuity and foresight of builders who have been dead for 19 centuries. This realization brings a deep, sighing sense of relief, a permission to let go of your own constant vigilance and trust in the enduring structures of the world. Looking down at your own hands in the amber glow, you notice how the light softens the skin, turning it the color of aged honey. Every movement you make is slowed by the heavy, warm atmosphere of the room. You find yourself moving with a deliberate, unhurried grace, as if you are underwater or in a dream. The physical weight of the air, saturated with the essence of heated oil and salt, seems to support your limbs, making the act of standing feel as effortless as floating. This is the sleepy history in its most potent form, a state where the past is so vivid and all-encompassing that the present moment simply ceases to exert its usual pressure. You are a guest of the Emperor Trajan, a witness to the peak of Roman glory, and the tranquility of this era is now your own. The flame before you is a living thing, a golden phoenix that consumes the oil and gives back life in the form of light. You watch its rhythmic dance, the way the core of the fire remains a steady, brilliant white, while the edges flicker in shades of orange, saffron, and deep sunset red. The silence here is not empty. It is granular, filled with the microscopic sounds of the building's life. You might hear the faint crystalline ping of the metal dome expanding in the heat, or the soft papery rustle of the air being drawn into the burner's intake. These sounds are so small, so intimate, that they require a level of stillness that the modern world rarely allows. To hear them is a privilege, a sign that you have successfully transitioned from the realm of the loud to the realm of the profound. Your mind, once a beehive of buzzing thoughts, has become like the travertine floor, cool, solid, and receptive to the light. You are no longer searching for answers or seeking distractions. You are simply existing, a silent traveler at the crossroads of the earth and the stars. The lighthouse has done its work. It has guided you not just to a geographical destination, but to an internal sanctuary of absolute unwavering peace. As the great silver reflectors continue their slow, silent work, projecting the Empire's defiance into the dark, you feel a deep, heavy tiredness beginning to pull at your spirit. It is not the exhausted, anxious fatigue of the modern day, but a righteous tiredness, the feeling of a long journey successfully completed. The heat of the room is like a warm bath, dissolving the last stubborn knots of tension in your shoulders and neck. You take a slow, deep breath, filling your chest with the ancient, toasted aroma of the summit, and feel a profound sense of gratitude for this moment of suspended time. The Roman night is vast, the Atlantic is deep, and the stars are infinite. But here, in the golden heart of the granite sentinel, everything is perfectly balanced, perfectly ordered, and perfectly still. You are ready now to let the light carry you further, drifting away from the world of stone and metal into the soft, welcoming shadows of a deep and restorative sleep. As the deep night reaches its silent zenith, the lantern room becomes a theatre of light and shadow, a place where the physical world feels increasingly porous and ethereal. The great flame, steady and unyielding in its bronze cradle, continues to pulse with a low, rhythmic hum that has now become the very heartbeat of your consciousness. In this heightened state of tranquility, your eyes begin to trace the intricate patterns of the shadows cast by the silver reflectors and the thick bronze pillars. These are not mere absences of light, they are deep velvet shapes that stretch across the travertine floor like the long dark fingers of time itself. As the flame flickers almost imperceptibly, these shadows perform a slow hypnotic dance, expanding and contracting in a rhythmic cycle that mimics the rising and falling of a sleeping chest. You find yourself mesmerized by the way the golden light catches the minute imperfections in the stone, the tiny fossilized shells and ancient mineral veins that map out a geological history millions of years older than the Empire itself. Every texture in the room, from the rough-hewn granite visible through the floor hatch to the mirror-polished silver, contributes to a profound sense of layers, the feeling that you are standing atop a mountain of accumulated time. The air in this high sanctuary is now perfectly saturated with the scent of the vigil. It is the aroma of the Pax Romana distilled into a single room, the clean, nutty fragrance of the oil, the dry, mineral scent of the stone, and the sharp, invigorating tang of the high-altitude salt mist. If you close your eyes for a moment, the scent alone is enough to construct a vivid, internal map of the Roman world. You can almost smell the sun-drenched olive groves of Baetica where the oil was pressed, the deep, cool quarries of the north where the granite was split from the earth, and the smoke-filled foundries where the bronze was poured. This is the sleepy history at its most immersive, a sensory bridge that allows your modern mind to rest upon the sturdy, reliable shoulders of the past. The warmth of the room is no longer an external sensation. It has become an internal state of being. You feel a deep, glowing embers of peace at the center of your chest, a reflection of the great fire that stands before you. There is a magnificent, unhurried dignity in this warmth, a reminder that civilization is not just about progress, but about the preservation of the things that make us feel safe, grounded, and connected to one another across the vast gulf of centuries. Looking back at the silver reflectors, you notice how they have become slightly clouded with a fine, translucent veil of sea salt crystals, atomized by the crashing waves far below and carried upward by the thermal currents. This fine white powder softens the brilliance of the light, turning the sharp beams into a soft, hazy glow that fills the room like a golden mist. The keeper, if he were here, would eventually take a soft cloth of Egyptian linen and carefully buff the silver back to a mirror finish. But for now, the salt haze adds a layer of dreamlike beauty to the scene. It makes the world outside the glass appear even more distant and ethereal, a shifting landscape of deep indigo and ghostly white. You feel a profound sense of gratitude for this softness, for the way the lighthouse tames the raw, violent energies of the ocean and the fire into a form that is gentle and restorative. The silence of the room has become thick, a heavy, comforting weight that presses against your ears and encourages you to let go of the last, stubborn fragments of analytical thought. You are no longer trying to understand the Roman world, you are simply allowing it to hold you. The physical sensation of the bronze plates beneath your feet is remarkably grounding. You can feel the minute vibrations of the great structure, the way the tower breathes in the wind, a slow, swaying motion that is so subtle it is felt more in the inner ear than in the muscles. This movement is not unsettling. It is the swaying of a cradle, a rhythmic reassurance that the tower is flexible and resilient, designed to move with the forces of nature rather than breaking against them. This is the final lesson of the architecture, that true strength lies in the ability to yield and adapt while remaining firmly anchored to the center. You find yourself leaning slightly into this motion, your body finding its own equilibrium within the monumental stone shell. Your breath has slowed to a long, effortless draw, the air feeling cool and clean as it enters your lungs, then warm and soft as you release it back into the amber glow of the room. You are part of the lighthouse's breathing now, a silent, living element in its ancient circular life. As you look up into the dome, the bronze ribs appear to converge into a single dark point, like the center of a great metallic flower. This focal point is the symbolic eye of the tower, the place where all the lines of force and all the beams of light originate. In the dim, reflected light, the dome looks like a miniature version of the celestial vault, a protective canopy that shields you from the infinite emptiness of the night. The feeling of being enclosed in this high sacred space is incredibly powerful. It is the ultimate sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world cannot reach, where the light is eternal, and where the past and present are woven into a single seamless tapestry. You feel the boundaries of your own identity softening, blurring into the larger story of the granite sentinel and the endless sea. You are the watcher, the flame, and the stone all at once. The light of the burner seems to pulse with a new, slower frequency, as if the fire itself is preparing for a period of rest. The brilliant white core has settled into a deep, steady gold, and the shadows have lengthened until they touch the very edges of the glass. The world outside has vanished completely into the velvet dark, leaving only the tiny flickering diamond of the evening star to keep you company. This isolation is the most profound peace you have ever known, a state of total blissful disconnection from the frantic energy of the modern world. You are suspended in a bubble of Roman time, a moment of crystalline clarity that has been preserved for you across 2,000 years. The heat of the room is like a heavy, invisible blanket, pulling at your eyelids and coaxing your chin to drop toward your chest. You take one final lingering look at the great flame, whispering a silent thanks to the master builders, the dedicated keepers, and the ancient stone that has carried you to this height. The sleepy history is almost complete. The journey through the ramp, the storage rooms, and the watch chambers has led you to this ultimate point of stillness. You are ready to close your eyes and let the golden light fade into the soft, welcoming shadows of sleep, confident that the lighthouse will continue its vigil long after you have drifted away. The thrum of the fire, the scent of the oil, and the vibration of the granite are the last things you feel as you surrender to the deep, majestic peace of the Roman night. You are safe, you are warm, you are home in the heart of history. As the late hours of the night transition toward the first invisible whispers of pre-dawn, the lantern room achieves a state of almost supernatural translucence. The heavy, golden atmosphere that has supported you now feels lighter, as if the physical materials of the tower, the bronze, the silver, and the stone, have begun to lose their solid density, becoming as ethereal as the light they serve. In this quietude, you find yourself focusing on the lapis specularis, the sheets of translucent selenite that form the upper windows of the transition chamber below. The light from the great flame passes through these crystalline panes, creating a soft, milky radiance that pools at the base of the bronze pillars. This light is ancient. It is the same quality of light that illuminated the faces of the builders who first stood here when the mortar was still damp. You realize that in this room, time does not move in a straight line from the past to the future. Instead, it spirals like the ramp below, a continuous repeating curve where every moment is layered upon the next. You are not merely remembering the year AD 110, you are existing within its persistent, shimmering resonance. Lower your gaze once more to the silver reflectors, now softened by the fine salt mist. Notice the way the flickering amber flame creates a breath upon the metallic surface, a constant undulating movement of light that looks like golden silk being pulled through the air. The scent of the room has evolved into something even deeper, and more grounding. The initial toasted nuttiness of the olive oil has settled into a rich, resinous perfume, reminiscent of sun-drenched Mediterranean hillsides after a long summer rain. This aroma is thick enough to taste, a sweet, earthy essence that fills every cell of your body with a sense of profound, ancestral safety. It is the scent of civilization at rest, a fragrance that promises that tomorrow will come, that the light will hold, and that the foundations of the world are secure. As you breathe it in, the rhythmic thrum of the fire seems to vibrate not just in the room, but within your very bones, a low-frequency hum that acts as a final, powerful sedative for your weary mind. The silence has now reached its ultimate depth. It is so profound that the distant, muffled roar of the Atlantic has become part of the quiet, a background pulse that emphasizes the absolute stillness of your sanctuary. If you listen with your soul rather than your ears, you can hear the voice of the granite sentinel, a slow, deep, and incredibly patient vibration that speaks of centuries spent standing watch. It is a voice that tells you that your worries are small, that your journey is honored, and that your rest is deserved. You find yourself leaning your head back against the cool, dark bronze of the central support, feeling the contrast between the chilled metal and the radiant heat of the air. This balance of temperatures is a tactile lullaby, a sensory push and pull that coaxes your eyelids to stay closed. The world of action, of speaking, and of doing has faded into a distant, irrelevant shadow. Here there is only being. The great flame itself seems to have sensed the deepening night. Its core is no longer a fierce, blinding white, but a soft, glowing orange like the embers of a dying sun. The shadows in the corners of the room have grown long and soft, their edges blurred by the golden haze until they merge with the dark granite of the floor. As you sit or stand in this fading brilliance, you feel a sense of total integration with the lighthouse. You are the flame, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic energy. You are the stone, unyielding and calm. You are the silver, reflecting the beauty of the light into the darkness. This feeling of oneness is the ultimate gift of the Roman summit, a dissolution of the self into the magnificent, enduring architecture of history. You are no longer a visitor from another time. You are the guardian of this moment, a silent watcher at the end of the world. Looking through the glass for the final time, you see that the evening star has travelled far across the sky, and the horizon has begun to take on a faint, almost imperceptible shade of deep charcoal grey. The darkest part of the night is passing, and the world is preparing to wake, but you are being invited to do the opposite. The warmth of the lantern room is now like a heavy velvet cocoon, wrapping you in layers of history and peace. The sleepy history has fulfilled its purpose, guiding you through the sensory details of a lost world until you found the stillness at its heart. The movement of the flame, the scent of the oil, and the vibration of the bronze are all pulling you down into a soft, bottomless sea of tranquility. Your thoughts have become like the tiny air bubbles in the glass panes, small, suspended, and perfectly still. With a long, slow, and completely satisfied sigh, you feel the final fragments of the waking world slip away. The Roman Empire, the Atlantic Ocean, and the towering lighthouse are now just the setting for a deep and restorative dream. You are safe in the hands of the ancient builders, protected by walls that have stood for 2,000 years. The light will continue to pulse, the silver will continue to shine, and the granite will continue to hold the earth, but you are now free to let go. You are drifting away from the shore of the present, moving into the vast calm and beautiful darkness of sleep. The thrum of the flame is the last thing you hear, a fading golden heartbeat that carries you into the deep, majestic silence of the Roman night. Everything is as it should be. You are at peace. As the deep, heavy mantle of midnight settles permanently over the coast of Hispania, the lantern room transforms into a cradle of pure, rhythmic serenity. The great flame, once a roaring pillar of industrious light, has settled into its most hypnotic and restful state. It pulses now with a slow, deliberate cadence, a golden expansion and contraction that mirrors the effortless breathing of a world in profound slumber. This is the stage of the final drift, where the solid world of granite and bronze begins to soften at the edges, melting into a landscape of pure sensory comfort. The warmth of the room, once a sharp contrast to the coastal chill, has now seeped entirely into your being, warming you from the marrow outward until you feel as though you are weightless, suspended in a warm, amber-scented sea of tranquility. The air is thick with the scent of toasted olive oil and the dry, sweet ghost of ancient cedar, a fragrance so familiar and grounding that it feels like a memory of home from a time you have only just rediscovered. Listen to the silence as it thickens around you. The low-frequency thrum of the burner has become a part of your own internal rhythm, a steady, unwavering bass note that lulls the conscious mind into total submission. The distant sound of the Atlantic is no longer a separate entity. It is a soft, rhythmic sighing, a long and slow exhalation that arrives from the darkness below and washes over the tower like a gentle, invisible tide. You are safe within these walls of 3-foot-thick stone walls that have absorbed the quiet of 2,000 years and are now radiating that accumulated peace back into your spirit. Every muscle in your body has surrendered its heavy burden. Your shoulders are soft, your hands are open and relaxed upon the warm travertine, and your jaw has released its final lingering tension. You are a silent observer in a world that requires nothing of you, a guest in a sanctuary where time has finally mercifully ceased to move. In this dim golden haze, the silver reflectors catch the flickering light and transform it into a series of soft dancing patterns upon the dome above. These shadows are slow and graceful, moving like the prehistoric kelp forests swaying in the currents far beneath the ocean's surface. They are liquid, shifting, and entirely mesmerizing, a visual lullaby that coaxes your eyelids to stay closed. You might find yourself watching them through the fine, translucent veil of your eyelashes, seeing the world of the Roman lighthouse as a blurred, beautiful tapestry of saffron, copper, and charcoal. The geometry of the room, the perfect circles of the floor, the burner, and the dome acts as a psychic anchor, ensuring that as you begin to drift, you remain centered and secure within this architectural embrace. There is no direction here, no up or down, only the circular, repeating peace of the ancient summit. The physical sensations of the lighthouse are now purely restorative. The bronze pillars feel like sturdy, reliable companions standing watch in the gloom, their surfaces cool to the touch but radiating a deep structural warmth. The floor beneath you is a solid, unmoving foundation that has held fast against the gales of 100 winters, promising that you are entirely protected from the elements. You are tucked away at the very top of the world, closer to the stars than to the earth, yet you have never felt more grounded. The sleepy history is no longer a narrative you are following, it is an atmosphere you are breathing. You are inhaling the quietude of AD 110, the unhurried patience of the stonemasons, and the steady dedication of the keepers who have gone before. This is a space of absolute crystalline permission. Permission to let go, permission to be still, and permission to sink into the soft, welcoming depths of the night. As the flame continues its rhythmic pulse, you feel the boundaries of your awareness expanding. You are aware of the long, spiraling ramp descending into the darkness, the silent storage rooms filled with the scent of pine pitch, and the heavy oak door at the base, locked tight against the world. You are aware of the granite cliffs and the white foam of the sea, all existing in a state of perfect nocturnal harmony. This interconnectedness brings a sense of deep cosmic relief. You are a part of a vast and beautiful machine of light and stone, a single thread in a tapestry that stretches across the millennia. The weight of your own individual story is lifted, replaced by the lighter, more enduring story of the Roman sentinel. You are drifting now, the golden light of the lantern room fading into a soft, charcoal-grey mist as your mind prepares to cross the threshold into sleep. The air is perfectly still, perfectly warm, and perfectly silent. The thrum of the fire is a fading heartbeat, a distant and comforting reminder that the vigil will continue without your effort. You are free to close your eyes completely now, letting the last of the amber glow vanish behind the velvet curtain of your lids. The journey is over, the summit has been reached, and the night is yours. Feel the profound, heavy peace of the Roman stone settling over you like a weighted blanket, drawing you down, down, down into the soft, dreamless shadows. The Atlantic sighs, the granite holds, and the flame watches over your rest. You are safe, you are warm, You are sinking into the infinite, beautiful quiet of the ancient world. The great flame has now become a soft, rhythmic pulse of deep amber, a gentle heart beating in the center of a silent world. As you linger in these final, precious moments of awareness, the physical tower of stone and metal seems to dissolve entirely, leaving only the sensation of being cradled by the very essence of peace. The transition is complete. You are no longer a visitor in history, but a part of the enduring silence that has blanketed this coast since the dawn of time. The warmth of the lantern room is now indistinguishable from the warmth of your own body, a seamless union of light and life. The air is so still, so pure, and so heavy with the scent of ancient resin and sea salt that every breath feels like a slow, deep immersion into a pool of velvet liquid. You are floating at the apex of the world, suspended between the salt spray of the Atlantic and the diamond fire of the Roman stars. Listen one last time to the heartbeat of the lighthouse. The low, subsonic thrum of the oil burner has slowed to a hypnotic whisper, a sound that does not interrupt the silence but deepens it. It is the sound of the universe breathing, a rhythmic hush that calls to the very core of your spirit. The distant roar of the ocean has faded into a ghostly rhythmic sigh, a sound that arrives from a vast distance only to dissolve against the solid granite foundation far below. There is no urgency here, no time, and no destination. There is only the slow circular dance of the shadows on the dome and the steady golden glow of the fading flame. Your mind is like the surface of the sea on a windless night, perfectly still, reflecting only the brilliance of the light above. The textures of the world are slipping away, the hardness of the bronze, the grit of the granite, and the polished smoothness of the silver have all softened into a single comforting presence. You feel the heavy restorative weight of sleep pulling at your limbs, a gentle gravity that is impossible to resist. It is a welcoming pull, an invitation to return to the deep, dreamless quiet of the earth. The sleepy history has woven its final thread, sealing you safely within a cocoon of Roman tranquility that no modern noise can penetrate. You are protected by 2,000 years of vigilance, by walls that do not crumble and a light that does not fail. The shadows have grown so long and so soft that they have become the room itself, a dark and beautiful sanctuary where you are free to disappear. As you take your final, deepest breath of the toasted aromatic air, you feel a sense of absolute completion. The journey up the spiraling ramp, through the chambers of memory and the voids of stone, has led you exactly where you were meant to be, here in the heart of the stillness. The amber glow behind your closed eyelids is fading now, darkening into a rich, peaceful indigo. The thrum of the fire is becoming a distant echo, a golden memory that guides you as you drift further and further from the shore of wakefulness. You're sliding into the deep currents of the night, carried by the rhythmic breathing of the sea and the eternal watch of the granite sentinel. The world is quiet. The empire is at rest. The light is steady. Sink down now, deeper into the warmth, deeper into the shadows, deeper into the ancient peace. The stars are watching, the stone is holding, then the night is infinite. There is nothing left but the rhythm, the warmth, and the silence. Safe, warm, asleep. Welcome to Sleepy History with Wesley, your personal sanctuary of ancient tales. Here, we blend authentic historical events with gentle AI technology to recreate immersive, soothing journeys through time. This channel is crafted specifically for relaxation and sleep support. TAND is not a substitute for professional medical advice. For your safety, please do not listen while driving or operating machinery. Now, close your eyes and let history carry you into a peaceful sleep.